The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. This is so shocking that these people have controlled everything of the African to the point that even our speech is a problem to these people. Julius Malema, the leader of EFF, has been declared guilty of hate speech 2 days after his speech at Nigeria Bar Association, calling for African unity. He declared one Africa, one currency, one army, and said Africa will not bow to anybody. And we have to stop these xenophobic activities that we are having in our countries towards one another. According to him, nobody will respect the African if we don't start respecting ourselves. That we cannot love other people who are outside our skin type, yet we hate ourselves. So we need to accord ourselves with the necessary respect that we need so that the people outside of the continent will also respect us. The Africa resources must benefit the people of Africa. We have to take charge of everything in our continent. The people must not sit outside of the continent to decide what we should be doing. This didn't go down well with the West and America. Africa is good at merrymaking, singing and dancing. Anytime an African rises up to talk about African unity, it becomes a threat. Our unity is a problem to the West. They can never stand the unity of Africa. That is the reason to which they make sure they get us leaders that they can easily control.
All right, let's bring you this now. The EFF has hit back at the Western Cape Equality Court's ruling that found its leader, Julius Malema, guilty of hate speech. The party says the verdict is an attack on political expression following racial tensions between EFF members and parents of pupils at Brackenfell High School. Malema told the crowd that killing is a revolutionary act. Now, the court found that Malema's comments were in violation of the Equality Act and demonstrated a clear intention to incite harm and promote hatred. Now, the complaints were brought by the South African Human Rights Commission and an individual who reported feeling personally threatened. Let's speak now to the South African Human Rights Commissioner, Professor Tsepo Madlingozi, who joins us tonight. Professor, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Take us back to when you decided to lodge a complaint against Mr. Malema. On what basis did you want him to be taken to task?
Good evening and good evening to you and your listeners. Thank you for having us. We received complaints from a number of individuals and institutions. We looked at the video, but also we looked at the transcript of the speech, and our assessment was that those words or those portions of the speech constituted hate speech. The basis for this, as you say, was the Equality Act, specifically Section 10 of the Act, that is very, very clear that none of us can propagate hatred, none of us can incite harm on the basis of prohibited grounds, whether it's race, gender, sexuality, religious harm. And we felt that as a commission, we should take Mr. Malema to task. We first addressed an allegation letter to Mr. Malema, asking Mr. Malema and the EFF to apologize, to retract the statements, and to undertake not to say the same statements in future. Yeah. They refused, therefore we approached the court.
So the EFF, in its arguments in court, they stated the following, that these were merely political statements or political commentary. In fact, if anything, this was metaphorical in nature. Do you take to heart what they are saying, that in the Equality Court's findings, they view this as a suppression of free speech, but also political commentary?
Well, let's start with the Constitution. The Constitution, as you well know, affords all of us the freedom of expression, but it limits it. It limits it on two important grounds. The first one is that none of us can propagate hate speech, and number two, incitement to violence is not allowed. that is taken further by the Equality Act, where in Section 10, it also makes it very clear that hate speech is not allowed. Of course, metaphorical speech, as we have seen, as the courts have also pronounced, is allowed. What is not allowed, and this was the case in this matter where a specific group of people are identified, a specific individual is also identified, members are exhorted to follow up, to isolate, and to deal with this person on the basis of their race and on the basis of their political belief. So we took the view that this was not metaphorical. This was a clear incitement to violence, and the court found in our favor that political speech is allowed. Metaphorical speech that is very harsh, that is even offensive, is allowed. But what is not allowed is to identify a group of people, exhort your members to follow up and to deal with them, and also to kill them. There are parts of the speech that can be argued that are metaphorical, talking about whiteness and white supremacy. But in this case, very, very clear, the leader of the party says, you guys can identify the person in the video. Why did you not follow up with that person? So this is beyond the realms of metaphor. Okay,
we'll talk in a moment about the way forward, because for the EFF, they are clear. They are going to appeal this. In fact, they have made it abundantly clear that they're going to the Supreme Court of Appeal. But before we get there, yesterday we spoke to Anton Harber. He's with the Campaign for Free Expression. He was commenting on this very case at the announcement of that judgment. And I'd like for us to listen to what he had to say before we continue the conversation.
Mr. Malema was found not guilty of hate speech when he sang "Kill the Boer." Then a few weeks ago, there was a finding that when he was called a cockroach, the person who did that, Kenny Kuneni, was guilty of hate speech. And now Mr. Malema is himself found guilty of hate speech for something that seems to me to be less serious than singing "Kill the Boer." So what strikes me is that we don't have a consistency. There needs to be a very clear threat of hurt or harm as a result of a statement of this kind.
Professor Madlingozi, there is the comment. There needs to be a very clear threat of hurt or harm as a result of a statement of this kind. But add to that, what he says is the lack of consistency on the part of the Equality Court. Does that make your case slightly weaker, you think?
No, with all due respect, Professor Harber has misdirected himself. I think, what I've seen in the media and also in summaries, it's not a full context of the speech. What the court does is to contextualize the speech textually, politically, but also ideologically, as we had asked the court to do. Now, of course, in the Kill the Boer case, it was argued correctly, found by the court, that it is a metaphorical exhortation, it's a metaphorical expression. In this case, I don't think Professor Harber looked at the entire speech, an hour and a half of the speech, where, as I said, number one, a specific individual is identified. Number two, members are exhorted to quote-unquote follow up. Members of the party are told that, you should have done what I did at the Winnie Mandela Memorial, where I dealt with this thing in a certain way. So we're not talking about metaphorical speech here. We are talking about a specific person identified. The person is identified on the basis of the political belief and the basis of their race, and members are asked to commit an act of violence. What we should also highlight is that intention is not relevant here. What is relevant, as Section 10 of the Equality Act puts it, is whether a reasonable person will have a reasonable apprehension that this constitutes incitement. And in this case, we should be very clear that the two cases should be distinguished. And in this case, it was a specific reference to a specific person.
All right.
And members were asked, why did you not follow up? You should have done this. And I must also add as a footnote that in this case, the person received a number of threats and the person had to go into hiding.
Africa must not unite, because the day we will unite, that is their downfall. We have to understand that on this journey, nobody will come and set us free. The West will never say they are tired, because their economy depends on us. We are seeing what is happening to Britain, France. Even the United States of America economy is crumbling. They are all not seeing top. Forget about how they package themselves outside. Their economies are telling us what is happening in these countries. The West is not knowing peace ever since Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso came into the scene. Just 3 countries in Africa taking control over the resources is making these people to suffer, because they are no longer getting the cheap resources that they need. So their industries are collapsing. That is where they are making their money from. Any leader in Africa that will rise up to unite Africa becomes a threat. That was the same thing they did to Muammar Gaddafi. That today a lot of people claim that Muammar Gaddafi was a dictator, which he wasn't. The only crime Muammar Gaddafi committed was trying to unite all Africans. This is something that the West will always cover up. Yet they don't tell us the good aspect. Today we have cheap phone call because Muammar Gaddafi paid the money for us to stop having our call passing through the West. Any leader in Africa that will talk about the unity of Africa becomes a target of the West. They didn't just waste time to strike back at Julius Malema for trying to call for Africans to unite. The only thing that can set us free is our unity. These are the people who came into the continent, created the division we are seeing, turning us against each other. When we are supposed to be talking about what will change in our country, we are thinking about what my party is doing. So even if the party is doing something wrong, you love the party. All these are systems that these people kept in place, and it's helping them. Africans, before we can be free, we need to fight. This is a war we are in, like Captain Ibrahim Traore said. Nkrumah said they are at their peak. The new form of colonization is so dangerous. The most painful aspect is because there are no chains on us. We are not seeing that we are being colonized. So the African is defending everything of these people, and they keep feeding us with things that they think that we love. They control everything. They control our media houses. They decide what we should be seeing. Like Captain Ibrahim Traore said, the things that they stream for us to see, even on social media, are blocked from their country. We really need to wake up. This is the time. We are all one people. They created colors and grouped us under these colors. Call your national flag. So whenever you see somebody outside of these colors, you think that person is not one of you. These are all agenda. These are their systems that they've kept in place to separate the African, so we wouldn't see ourselves as one. We must unite. Nkrumah's only crime was because he was asking for Africans to unite. All our freedom fighters, the crime they ever committed was asking Africans to unite. Any president in your country that the West is not targeting is a bad leader. Do not die a coward. This journey of freedom, we must all unite to fight against the West. They are never powerful than us. The only tool they are using is the division. And when we are able to unite, we'll defeat them. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Africa, Southern Africa, and in South Africa.